Good morning. It's 9 o'clock and time for the Wednesday, July 17th budget workshop to begin. We're going to begin with an invocation by Reverend Dan Holloway of Unity of Vero Beach, and that's going to be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Tim Zork. Please rise.
Our thought today is on harmony. From a daily word reading, today I do my part to bring peace and harmony to my corner of the world. When I view the world from my higher nature, I am not swayed by outer appearances or individuals. The harmony I radiate is contagious. Those I come in contact with feel lighter and happier. It's not enough to pray for harmony. I must strive to be harmony. The time to change the world starts now with me. We read in Colossians, above all, clothe yourselves with love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony. So we pray knowing divine order and perfect harmony for this day. So it is. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, I thought after yesterday's City of Vero Beach City Council meeting that we'd have the same type of crowd here today, but evidently not. We're not, yeah. You know, we're about to begin today's budget workshop, and I couldn't miss the opportunity to read one of my favorite quotes from Cato's letter number 20 by John Trenchard. It is, amongst the crimes which regard a state, robbing the public is the greatest, because upon the careful and frugal administration of the public treasure, the very being of the Commonwealth depends. So with that, Jason, I will turn it over to you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Hopefully we can live up to Cato's standard there. So we'll start out with a brief overview of the budget. The total proposed budget is $367,725,135. That is a decrease of about $31 million, or 7.8% from our March 31st mid-year budget. However, moving on to the second portion of the slide, that we call the Chairman Solari portion, is the comparison to our beginning 18-19 budget. The beginning budget this year was $339 million, and that's before a lot of rollovers and grants that happened mid-year throughout the year. So we are up $27.8 million, or 8.2% from the current year budget. So some things driving the budget. We had a 7% tax roll increase. On the countywide tax roll, it was just a little under that. In the unincorporated area at 6.97%. It was about 7.1% in the emergency services district. Sheriff's funding, as you all know, that has a major impact on the general fund budget and the MSTU budget as well. It's over, the sheriff's budget is over half of the general fund budget. Staff is recommending a $3.3 million increase, which is about a 6.3% increase. I will note that that is less than the sheriff's initial request of $3.8 million, almost $3.9 million. So the sheriff had requested that higher amount. I reached out to him to see if we could arrive at a number we could both support. So I'm supporting the $3.3 million increase, a little bit more than maybe I would like to do, but a little bit less than the sheriff would like to do, and that's how compromise works, right? So there, obviously, public safety is a top priority, is the top priority in our budgets, and so we're recommending that so the sheriff can do some of the things he needs to do in his budget. We do have continued funding of the school resource officers, which was started last year at a 50-50 split with the school district. Children's services, that is going up a little under $400,000, or 23.8%. So this upcoming year will be the third year of our 3-year phase into the full 1/8 of a mil under the Children's Services Ordinance. If you'll recall, we had cut that amount down during the downturn like we did a lot of things, and we're below the 1/8 of a mil amount. And the board approved a couple years ago basically a 3-year phase-in to get us to the 0.125 mils. So that is happening with this budget. Health insurance, as we discussed earlier, we've had some increases in our health insurance expenses. They're having a $1.9 million impact on the county budget. That is including the constitutional officers' budgets, and the employees are facing a significant increase in the premium as well. So deferred maintenance and capital during the downturn, as we reported to this board earlier this year on that, we do have a total of about $11 million in maintenance, renewal, and replacement deferred capital across the budget. In the taxing funds, that is about $1.1 million. One of the focuses of this budget is the increased investment in our conservation lands. As the board knows, the voters approved 2 voter referendums to acquire conservation lands in our county for a total of $76 million over between the 90s and 2004. We acquired that land. We received matching dollars for about $70 million. So we've spent about $140 million on that property. However, as we've discussed before, some of those initial improvements to provide access to our public had not been done. Some of those were actually requirements of that $70 million in cost shares we got from the state and various agencies. We have been working on doing that, but we also need to beef up our maintenance. So one of the things that we're doing is proposing 2 additional conservation land techs. Right now, as we sit here, we have 2 employees in our conservation lands division. They are folks that work in the office a lot. They also go out and do some field work, but we don't have a dedicated field crew for the 2,900 acres of conservation lands that we're responsible to manage. And we basically beg, borrow, and steal our spare parks crews when they have spare time, which isn't that often to get that work done. So we're proposing that. Also, something to note, we had previously had that department housed in the MSTU fund, which was the way it was set up years ago. We're proposing to move that to the general fund this year because those are countywide resources. The bonds were issued countywide. The lands are throughout the county, so we're recommending that. An increase of a net of 3 constitutional officers, 37 for the BCC departments, which the primary drivers of that, we have 8 in our utilities department, and we have a total of 13 in fire rescue, 7 of which are to staff a new ambulance at Station 5, which is the Winter Beach Station. So the central part of the county is growing, and our call volume has increased significantly. So moving on is that med, back one slide. As I talked about the med unit, utilities department, that's those 8 folks that I mentioned. Another thing that we're doing in utilities that I think is a good thing is we have a significant increase in there for some chemical treatment at our wastewater treatment facilities. There's a process that we've used at our West Regional Wastewater Treatment Plant to help out with our treatment and our permit there, which is a very restrictive permit, and so we're achieving advanced wastewater treatment standards, which are 553 and 1. It's 5 milligrams per liter of dissolved solids. I can't remember what the second one was, but 3 milligrams per liter of nitrogen and 1 milligram per liter of phosphorus. We are not achieving that standard at our central wastewater plant or our south wastewater treatment plant. We achieve it some days, but not all days. So we have about $500,000 for a chemical treatment that we're hoping will help us achieve that standard without having to spend millions of dollars in additional equipment at those facilities. So we have that. We think that's a good thing. It reduces the nutrients and reuse and the effluent from the plants, and we think that's another one of those things that we're doing to forward the health of the Indian River Lagoon. We have also a focus on technology and cybersecurity, recommending an IT director position to beef up our information systems department. Also, we have our GIS department reports to actually reports to Dory, who's retiring next month. So we need to kind of unify those under one umbrella. Telecommunications also currently reports to Public Works, but we want to unify all these technology related and communication related functions under one position. So there's the total, is the 37 full-time employees. So we have a little bit of history on our millage. You guys have seen this all before. Our taxable values decreased during the downturn. We kept our millage rate low. We are recommending at the end of the day, a slight increase in the millage in the general fund of about 2.52%. That is offset by a 9.1% decrease in those conservation land bonds. So the net on a countywide millage is an increase of 1.64%. The MSTU has a 7.2% increase. I'll talk a little bit more about that once we get to the MSTU fund. It's a large percentage increase. It's not as a large dollar increase. The Emergency Services District, I'm happy to present, does not have a millage increase, even though we are adding that ambulance at the station. We had some capital funds in the current year, so we're able to dollars for that. So just a comparison of our surrounding and comparable counties, the general fund millage rate in the current year is the third lowest out of 67 counties in the state. And as you can see, you've got St. Lucie, Osceola, Martin, and Brevard as our neighbors, are all higher. Brevard is the closest to us. Martin is also a comparable county as they're a similar population, but Hernando, Charlotte, Santa Rosa, Citrus, and St. John's, they're all comparable in population to us. As we know, the state mandates, the things we have to fund, like the constitutional officer, the court system, things like that, represent nearly 3/4 of our general fund, and our BCC departments are kind of last to the table, if you will, at the buffet, at the Thanksgiving table. We've got to fund a lot of other priorities, and if there's food left over when we get to the BCC departments, they get the scraps of what's left over. So what do those tax rates do to a typical house? So we've got a $200,000 house with a $50,000 homestead exemption. And as you know, it depends on where you live in the county, but about 2/3 of our residents are in the unincorporated area, so I'll focus on that. So currently, those folks pay the highest amount of taxes to us because they pay all of our millages. It's about $1,077.30. That would be going up by about $20 to $1,098.07. You will see that if you live in a city, the tax bill is going up by about $9 instead of that $20.
Jason?
Yes.
You have that $200,000 house, basically, the assessed value in Indian River Shores. I've been looking for it, but I've never found it.
What?
Do you have an address for it?
You make a great point there. 200,000 is a good typical house countywide, but as you know, we have many different neighborhoods, and yeah, if we find that $200,000 house in Indian River Shores, we'll let you know.
I just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing it. Yeah. Thank you.
It's probably a little higher there on average.
Wesley could fix that.
So there is also those homes that are homesteaded have a cap on them, and the assessed value can go up by 1.9%, or will go up by as much as 1.9% if the just value is higher than the assessed value. So this slide does the same thing, but accounts for that 1.9% increase in the assessed value. So instead of the $20 in the unincorporated area, that home would be looking at a $48 per year increase, which is about $4 a month. So maybe we've got a better shot of finding a $203,000 house in Indian River Shores. So that is pretty much it on the overview. We're ready to go into the general fund if you like.
Yeah, I just want to note one thing. You talked about the new employees and 37 new employees. I think the historical perspective is worthwhile here. I think we actually peaked at 964 employees just before the Great Recession. And according to the budget papers here, the 37 new employees will get us to 874 employees in the county. So this is still substantially less than we had at the peak. So again, for me, it's still a statement that there's nothing excessive in that. And I think that's hopefully some of the near-end catch-up to the cuts we made during the Great Recession.
Right, thank you, yes, and yeah, we still are 90 below our peak in 2006, 2007. I will note we have opened 4 fire stations and 1 30,000 square foot library during that time. So we've gone from 2 to 3 main branch libraries, not including Gifford and the Marion Fell Library in Fellsmere, which was new this year. So moving on to the general fund. The general fund budget, the 7% tax roll increase brings us about $4.1 million in additional revenue. We are recommending that 2.5% increase from last year. So constitutional officers overall going up about $3.8 million here. The sheriff's budget is up 3.3, but the impact on the general fund is closer to 3.5. We do have a significant increase in the supervisor of elections budget for about $248,000. Staff has no quarrel with that. Part of that, a big chunk of that is we have a presidential preference primary coming up in next fiscal year. So the supervisor of elections budget normally goes up during those presidential election years. It will stay up typically for the general election in November the following year, and then goes back down. And Leslie's been a great steward of the taxpayer dollars, but that just is an impact on the budget. It's about $248,000 increase. There is also an additional IT person there to beef up their IT and some additional mandate that's new for this year to print our ballots in Spanish and a lot of the stuff. And I'm sure Leslie will be able to talk about that far more eloquently than I can right here. And then we have another about $100,000 in the other constitutional officers. Children's services, we mentioned. State agencies going up $234,000. I do want to note that this year, for the first time, we're having to fund the IT needs of the court administration, the judges in the court system, fully out of the general fund. And that is another, I see that as basically a mandate as well. So, Commissioner Solari, as you know, you were on the Constitution Revision Commission most recently. There was one 20 years before that. And based on that Constitution Revision Commission, the voters approved an amendment to the Constitution that basically said the state had to fund the court system. Prior to that, it wasn't fully doing that. So it took about 4 or 5 years for the state to implement their plan with that. And one of the things we still have certain responsibilities like the facilities, IT needs is one of those. There is a $2 recording fee that was contemplated to pay for that. However, that fund has run out in the court system. It has not kept up with the uses. So we have been for years partially funding those IT needs out of the general fund. But this year we are funding the entire amount out of the general fund. And that's a little scenario where the state said, sure, you guys have to fund IT, but here's a revenue stream to pay for it. Well, that revenue stream has not kept up with the needs of the court system. So the taxpayers of Indian River County are bearing that, contrary to the intent of the constitutional amendment passed about 20 years ago that says the state will fund that. So that's just Jason getting on my soapbox a little bit there, but that is something that is having an additional impact on the budget and driving those state agencies. So the deferred maintenance and capital is about $777,000. We do also have a lagoon master plan program for $200,000. The increase in health insurance that I talked about before is over $800,000. That does include the sheriff and the other constitutional officers in that. So the total net increase in BCC positions in the general fund is 5.5, with 2 of those being the conservation lands, 2 for the libraries. I'm going to talk about the libraries a little bit. I mentioned we opened the Brackett Library during the downturn. When we did that with existing staff, and it really has strained the operation. That has continued today. If you look before we opened the Brackett Library to today, with an additional 30,000 square foot facility, we have 10 fewer full-time positions in the library system overall than we did before we opened Brackett back in that 06, 07 time period. So one of the problems we have, it's kind of like the conservation lands. We've got this beautiful 30,000 square foot library out there at the Mueller campus for IRSC. I think it's underutilized because we're not programming it. We've got 3 full-time employees there. There's a wonderful children's room there. It's got a pirate ship in it that was contributed by Disney's Vera Resort. We don't have significant children's programming there, so it's really underutilized. So we're one of those positions would be a full-time position to staff that. We are also recommending an additional position in emergency management, and we are allocating the 0.5 comes from half of the emergency services director, Chief Stone. His salary has been charged to the general fund for many years. However, a significant amount of his work is as the fire chief overseeing the fire rescue district. So we're allocating half of his position to the fire district, which is something we need to do. And that new position not only brings some sorely needed help to our emergency management folks who do a great job and work very hard, it also makes sure that we're in line with our emergency management base grant program. So there is a non-supplement rule for the EM base grant that we receive from the state each year that basically says you can't just take this money and do what you are going to do anyway. You have to take this grant dollars and use it to beef up your emergency management. And so there's basically a 5-year look-back period. You take an average of the previous 5 years, and your current budget has to exceed that to prove that you're not supplementing that. Well, we didn't meet that bar last year based on the actuals. So Kristen got to communicate with the state on that about how we will cure that. So one of the things is we need that position, A, for the resources, and B, to really make sure that we don't lose that EM base grant. And then there's one position in facilities management to help out with the maintenance of the facilities. So that is the overview for the general fund. So we'll go through, and we've talked about the split there. But if we want to go into page 31 in your backup for the BCC departments, we'll get started on those. BCC operations, the recommended budget's $1,083,806, a slight decrease from the current year. County Attorney's Office, $942,171, down to $11,824, or 1.2% from last year. The GIS transfer is $69,524. That's an $18,000 decrease from last year. Communications Emergency Services is $605,025, up about 2.1% from last year. Main Library is $2,525,245, which is down $22,289, even though we do have the additional full-time position that was for some furniture and some work that was included in the current year budget. North County Library, similar situation, $1,123,844, a decrease of $39,000. There was some one-time supply money in there in the current year. The Brackett Library, as we mentioned, $336,649. That's up $27,308. The primary driver is the additional position there. Soil and Water Conservation District, $53,572, up $2,490, or 4.9%. Law Library is about $92,000 a year. We're up a minor amount there. County Administrator's Office, $578,677, down about $11,759. That's due to a pending retirement where we'll have a lower salary next year. General Services, $151,265, down $6,859. Human Resources, $547,518. That's down $89,008. The reason for the decrease there is we had about $100,000 in the budget in the current year for a new time and attendance system, and we have arrived at a solution that the board has approved for us to move forward with a system that's going to cost about $30,000 a year to implement that. So that is what's driving the decrease there. Planning development, that is where we pay for the demolition of unsafe structures, so it's zero. We do that through budget amendments. Veteran Services, $275,437, up $6,240, or 2.3%. Emergency Management, This is where we have that additional position, $435,128. It's down $163,000. The reason for the large decrease is we get several grants throughout the year. They're in the current year budget. They're not in the new year budget. Parks Division, $2,672,535,000. That's up $52,034. We have some significant renewal and replacement deferred maintenance costs there. That's driving the primary driver of the increase there. Human Services, $281,600, an increase of $15,031, or 5.6%. Ag Extension, $184,944. That's down $15,801. Conservation Lands, you'll see here, $451,534. The current year's zero because that was in the MSTU fund previously. We think that the general fund is a more appropriate location for that. Purchasing, $214,271, up $8,019. Facilities Management, $4,516,277. That's up $403,666, or 9.8%. A lot of that deferred maintenance is here, which includes, among other things, $250,000 for sealing and painting County Admin Building A, which was not an item on the deferred list when we came to you, but it is something that needs to be done to make sure that we have a solid seal on the outside of the building so we don't run into long-term problems going forward. Office of Management and Budget, $332,470, down $29,102, or 8%. That is due to lower salaries for staff turnover. FPL grant. This is the radiological emergency preparedness that is funded by a grant from FPL to help us plan for the St. Lucie nuclear plant. That is $129,580, an increase of $10,000, or 8.6% fully funded by FPL. EM base grant, $105,597, which is down $12,228. So this is the grant that we have to meet that 5-year threshold. Computer services transfer is $776,431, which is up $133,066, or 20.7%. That is to fund various needs there, as well as the additional IT director and a multimedia position to help us, among other things, ensure that we maintain ADA compliance on our website, which is another mandate, if you will. Insurance premiums, $291,715, up about 0.5%. Animal control, $581,720. That's going down about $18,000, primarily due to a new van purchase in the current year that is not happening in next year. Mailroom is $165,052, a decrease of $218,074. That decrease you see there is largely as a result of a new voice over IP phone system that we are working to have installed this year. Indian River Lagoon is $271,560, going up $145,480, primarily for the lagoon plan. So that is BCC departments.
Jason, before you begin the constitutional officers, if I may, the first one you have up there is the clerk of the court. And you wouldn't know it if you're in the audience looking here, but the woman who takes our minutes at both this budget hearing and actually at all BCC meetings is not an employee of the Board of County Commissioners. She's actually an employee of the clerk of the court, and she served the Board of County Commissioners for the past 12 years. And Maureen Gelfo, who has served us so well for these years, is actually retiring. So this will be her last budget hearing. I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank her very much for her years of service to the board, and we appreciate you even though you're not actually one of our employees. So thank you very much. Sorry for the interruption, Jason.
Mr. Chairman, did you just want to see if anyone in the audience would like to speak to the general fund items?
That's you're right. Anybody on the general fund?
See?
Thank you, Mr.
Good sergeant.
I almost missed you, Mr. Stump.
Thank you, Mr. O'Brien. Just one quick question, Jason, if I could. Earlier in your
presentation about some description of expenses. You mentioned a county law library. I believe the figure was $91,000. Can I ask where is that law library located? Is it just for the county attorney in the county building, or is that for the county as a whole?
No, the law library is actually housed in the main library building, catty corner across the street from the courthouse.
Okay.
We do have, I think, a kiosk and a minor collection over at the courthouse still. Once upon a time, the law library was in the courthouse.
Sure.
For a cost-saving mechanism, we did move it over to the main library. We have someone who is there, and there are references there and a librarian to assist folks, but that is open to the public for people to use for their legal needs.
Good enough. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Also just like to recognize this will be our first year for me that Bob Johnson is not in attendance with us with his normal diligent questions that he would ask, and he'll be missed this year. Thank you.
Anybody else from the public wish to comment on the general fund items? The general fund items only right now. There being none, Jason.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So our constitutional officers, the clerk of the court, the proposed budget is $1,104,029, an increase of $48,385, or 4.6%. From the current year, staff is recommending the proposed increase requested by the clerk of the court. Next is the tax collector, and I have to say here that this is presented for informational purposes. The tax collector's budget is not due until August 1st, and the tax collector's budget is submitted to the Department of Revenue, like the property appraiser, which is coming up next. And so we don't know what that request is. We do our best guess each year at the budget office. So what we're showing there is $1,561,704, a decrease of $23,400, or 1.5%. We're thinking there'll be some a reduced lease payment there in the North County. So we feel comfortable with a slight decrease there. And there's also a netting out of the budget there. The tax collector is a fee officer who generates a lot of fees, and then the budget is basically the differential between those fees and the cost of running the office. So if needed, we can adjust that later, but that is just simply a projection and not an actual request from the tax collector. Up next is property appraiser. The proposed budget is $3,178,023. Which is an increase of $65,503, or 2.1%. I will note that this is the general fund portion. The property appraiser's budget, like the tax collector, is split among several different funds. So you'll see it in the emergency services district, land acquisition bonds. A portion of the budget's paid out of the solid waste and the street lighting districts, but the amount for the general fund is this 2.1% increase. And I think overall it's a 4.7% increase. Next is the sheriff, which is $53,602,098, which is an increase of $3,453,723. Once again, this is the general fund funded portion. We do have some sales tax dollars for police cars and things like that out of the sales tax. So the overall increase in the sheriff is 6.3% as opposed to the 6.9% here. We do track the sheriff's electric separately, so that's $820,800, no change from the current year, as we did decrease that for the sale of the city electric to FPL in the current year's budget. And a programming note, if you will. We had the sheriff program for later in the day, but if we want to cover that, the sheriff is here and he's agreeable to covering his budget during this portion. If the board chooses to do that, we can go ahead and get that done. Unless if somebody shows up at 1:30 expecting the sheriff's budget, we can allow them to provide comment at that time.
Is that fine with the board?
It's fine with me, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. We'll give the option to the sheriff when the time comes.
Okay. Next is supervisor of elections, $1,617,014. As stated before, an increase of $248,489. That is up 18.2%. But as I said before, a lot of that is related to the upcoming presidential election, presidential preference primary, I think I got that right, which happens in next year's budget, which always drives the budget up. There is that additional IT person, which based on the current situation of IT overall and the attention on elections, I think that makes sense. I think also my understanding is the IT person at in the supervisor of elections office is approaching retirement, so there's also a transition planning going on there too. And then finally, value adjustment board, which is something that we share the cost of with the school district. We are estimating a $60,000 cost for that, no change from the current year. So that's constitutional officers.
Any questions for Jason on the constitutional officers? I'll ask if there's anybody in the public who'd like to comment on the constitutional officers. Jason?
Next is the MSTU fund. So
Did any of the constitutionals want to comment on your budget?
Well, don't encourage him. Yeah,
Well-
we gave him a chance. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you, Board, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to, again, express my appreciation and transition to Kristen as a budget director, and our relationship has been very good. And she's an excellent budget director, and we appreciate the cooperation, so thank you.
It's on time, in line, and approved by the Department of Revenue. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioner Solari, and all the rest of the commissioners. Thank you. I want to express my appreciation for your support of my budget. I know that every 4 years my budget goes up because we do have an extra countywide election, which requires a lot of resources. And also, we have this unexpected mandate from Governor DeSantis, which was signed in April, that we have to have all of our ballots, and the ballots in English and Spanish, which is not the big part, it is all of our election materials. And we have a lot of paper in the elections office, so everything from voter information cards to all of our vote-by-mail materials, our provisional ballot materials. Every day I find something else that has to be translated into Spanish. So I'll probably be pretty good at it by the time this is over with. We also, cybersecurity is a huge concern. And our IT manager is going to be going into drop, so we're hiring another person because we need this person trained through a presidential election cycle, and then in 2021 we're going to have redistricting. So that's another big job that they have to learn. So that's why our budget has increased dramatically, and then it will go down. So I wanted to thank you, and also I wanted to bring this up. We have our canvassing board workshop, which is usually held in January. They're moving it forward to October. So if you have your representative, whenever you pick them, it might be a little earlier than usual. If they'd like to attend the canvassing board workshop, if they could just let me know so I could reserve a spot for them. And the last thing I want to do is thank Dylan Reingold. He has been exceptional. We've had a lot of challenges. A lot of people are filing lawsuits with elections. It's not anything that we've done, but we kind of get lumped all together, and he has been phenomenal in helping me get through all of this and save the county a lot of money. So thank you very much. Any questions?
Thank you, Leslie. And
Thank you, Liz.
continue doing the great job. Make us all proud.
Appreciate it.
Morning, Sheriff.
Good morning, Commissioners, and for the record, I'll be available at 1:30 if you need me as well. But I want to thank you specifically to our senior commissioners. I was looking back over some of the things that the three on the end that we went through in the last 11 years, from 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And we had our ups and downs, that's for sure. But as a team, we were able to come through and get this done. I certainly want to appreciate your time that I spent with each of you on July the 8th to outline and understand your sincere appreciation for public safety in this county. We have an awesome team. I was very proud last night while I was watching a municipal meeting where Mr. Reingold and Mr. Brown represented this county in an outstanding fashion. I do want to thank Mr. Brown. We've had ups and downs as well, I can tell you that. Sometimes Mr. Brown feels like Perhaps he's paying for the road trip with the fuel, but not getting invited along. But the sign of us working together clearly is remarkable. Most recently, we have a kind of significant case that we're working, called Mr. Brown to use some heavy equipment, and without any hesitation whatsoever, it was done. And I'll close by saying this: for the last 11 years, I've always said this: we have a good thing here. Most sheriff's offices do not get along with their board. So, on behalf of the sheriff's office and the hardworking men and women, I say thank you.
Thank you very much, Sheriff.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to commend the sheriff. As he mentioned, those great recession years, we did have to cut his budget, and we had to cut it severely. And, you know, the sheriff always has three options when it comes to his budget, things like that. One is he can go to the press and cry, you know, public safety is endangered and murder and crime is going to skyrocket if the commissioners don't fund me at what I want. He can go to Tallahassee and go to the governor and cabinet and have the local county commission overruled, or he can pick up his pencil and his eraser and pick up the bootstraps and work hard and make it work with the dollars we've allocated. And Sheriff Lohr has always done that third option. He's never pulled the other two cards. As he kind of referred to, we've had some good debates and discussions on his budget, and he has fought passionately for every dollar that we have given him. But when it's all said and done, he's usually a little bit mad for a couple of weeks, but then he gets over it and he makes it work. And so I just want to commend the sheriff for doing that and working with us, you know, and realizing we have other things we need to fund as well as public safety. But the sheriff has always taken the high road, and I think that's important to point out at this point. So again, thank you, Sheriff, for your cooperation as well.
Thank you, Commissioner, very much.
Mr. Chairman, yes, ditto on that, and the sheriff made kind comment to this board. I want to return that, and if you ever think that what we do here in Indian River County is a little on the rougher end, just take a look. I know you maybe take a little time and look at another jurisdiction's budget hearing and watch the constitutionals. It's a whole different event. And so I want to thank all of our constitutionals for their humble requests, their response to our county administrator, and understanding that what we have, what the taxpayers have afforded us to be able to work with. And I want to give thanks and praise to all of our constitutionals as well. And thank you, Sheriff.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff, and thanks for making yourself available at 1:30 today also.
Thank you, Chairman, and I appreciate the banter that you and I share, although
Banter, is it?
I think so, but I appreciate your time. Thank you.
We didn't have no banter on our end.
He's talking about past years.
Oh, okay.
I thought it was contentious debate was your term for
Open
that.
contentious debate.
Open contentious
was
debate.
kinda
That's-
gentle,
that's more
banter.
what it is. Jason, well, I'll ask the public, does anybody else want to speak on the constitutional officers? There being none, Mr. Brown, you're.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I neglected to thank the sheriff before in my lead-in, so I do want to thank him for working with us. He did work with us during the downturn to cut his budget, and I just want to thank him for working with me on that. I know we have had our differences. Sometimes I can be maybe difficult to work with, but I appreciate him working with me on that this year. So next we have MSTU budget. So the ad valorem tax roll is up 6.97% here, and so we are recommending a 7.2% millage rate increase here of 1.1506. So I may get the question, so the tax roll's up almost 7%. Why do we need a tax increase or a millage rate increase? So with no change in the millage, that 7% increase gives us $727,000 in new revenue. The sheriff's transfer alone, because we fund the law enforcement portion of his budget to avoid double taxation of our city taxpayers, that is up $1.8 million. So that's why we're needing that. We've had the help from sales tax and state revenue sharing and franchise fees in the past years to help get us through, but we basically have a a really small amount of ad valorem taxes here, and I'll go through the history of that a little bit. Or actually, yeah, why don't we go there? Why don't we go to the next slide? So you can see the MSTU millage fund history here, which has basically been flat through the downturn. At the beginning there, you can see the peak, or the early part of that where we had a higher millage. If we go to the next slide, so it's a tale of two times. During the good times, prior to the downturn, our taxable value was rising significantly, right? What we did during that time is the board lowered the millage rate from 1.68 mils to 1.08 mils. So that is a reduction of over a third of the millage rate. So, well, we know what happened after 07, 08, so the downturn happened. Tax roll dropped back down to an area where it was prior to that, but the board gave us the message, we're not going to raise taxes on our residents who are facing enough financial struggles at home, so we kept that millage the same. So we really reduced our amount of ad valorem there in the MSTU fund, and we never really did recover. So that is why we're looking at the increase. Actually, with this 7% increase, the total millage in the MSTU, the total levy, will now be about the same as it was in that 2006, 2007 time period. So if we could go back to the MSTU slide. The bullet one. There, no. Go back 3 slides. So also we have, impacting the budget is the telecommunications, is joining IT fund, and the Parks and Conservation lands is moved to the general fund. Deferred maintenance in the MSTU budget is $266,000. The increased health costs are $62,000 here. We do have a net increase of 2 full-time positions in this fund, one of which is a part-timer that we're increasing the full-time in the shooting range, and the other is an additional position to help out with the promotion and operation of the IG building with its growing revenue and with how busy that is. So we'll go through the MSTU fund departments next. So first is up is county attorney, FMPA. This is where we house the legal bills for the FMPA battle. As the county attorney's office is in the general fund. However, this is something that we appropriately thought should be funded by the unincorporated residents. As that has gone away, the budget is 0. North County Aquatic Center, $1,140,506. That is up $288,919. The main reason for that is some of that deferred maintenance and renewal and replacement. We have a new roof for over $100,000 at that facility, and also resurfacing of the activity pool. We had previously, a year ago, resurfaced the competitive pool, but we need to resurface the activity pool, so that is why you're seeing the increase there. Gifford Aquatic Center, $427,177. That is a decrease of $58,163, due largely to some improvements in the current year. Next is the recreation budget overall, $985,482. That is a decrease of $38,519, or 3.8%. The primary reason for the decrease here is the current year has a software system for tracking recreation programs where people can go online and make their and reserve things like rooms at the IG Center or sign up for basketball and things like that. We're working to implement that. Intergenerational facility, $583,263, an increase of $89,740. The drivers there are that new position to help us with additional promotions, and that will free up some of our current staff for other responsibilities at the IG Center, as it has been quite busy. But we're looking for more business. There's also some supplies there, like tables and chairs that were not purchased initially, that will provide us some additional revenue opportunities going forward. Next is Ocean Rescue. These are funds our lifeguards at our 4 guarded beaches. budget is $886,266, a decrease of $34,677. Shooting range is $779,793, an increase of $107,920, up 16.1%. As stated before, we are recommending increasing a part-time position to a full-time position so that we can provide additional support to our staff there. We haven't been able to fully support the new Hunter Safety and Education Building and the sporting, the skeet and trap areas that we've built there. We added some staffing there. However, we need to make sure that we're running a safe operation there and freeing up some of our other folks like the range master to do additional work rather than having to cover this more clerical work. We also have 2 budgeted temporary positions in there, which are programmed to help us out with hopefully the plan is to maybe have some evening hours one night a week at the shooting range. We do have lights at the shooting range that were installed, but we have not had those nighttime operations. Next is community development, $261,741, an increase of about $4,900 or 1.9%. Next is county planning, $1,240,036, up $7,929 or 0.6%. Code enforcement has a decrease of $506,597, down $15,661 or 3%. The decrease is due to staff turnover there. And parks is in the current year budget is the conservation lands, which is 0, and then road and bridges is those demolition for the unsafe structures from the building department. Telecommunications, as we stated, is moving to the IT fund, which is back charged to all of the departments that use that. And the history there is telecommunications. It was initially in the MSTU fund because it started out as we had the ability to franchise cable television, and it was only in the unincorporated area. However, that position has morphed to provide more of our, since we don't have the ability to have franchises for cable, what that turned into was our fiber optics operations and things like that. Next is the tax collector, which again is just funds a portion of the tax collector's budget, and her budget has not been submitted as it's not due until August 1st. So that's MSTU fund departments.
Chairman?
I'll go to Commissioner Zork then, too.
Yes, Jason, just since there's been a lot of discussion of cost of operating pools and things, so the North County Aquatic Center and the Gifford Aquatic Center, it's $1,567,000. Obviously, that's our expenses. We do offset a portion of that in revenue, but they clearly do not. The revenues that we get for usage of the facilities only pays, what, 20-ish% of our operating costs?
Right. The norm for a pool is 20 to 25%. I'd say on average, North County excels at that. I think we were 39.6% last year of the revenues funding almost 40%. Gifford does not as well. It's about 18% funded by that. So, but you're correct that it is normal that pools don't pay for themselves, so we do. They do have to be subsidized by the taxpayer, if you will.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the intergenerational building, Jason, I get nothing but great compliments about it except for one thing, and several groups have told me this most recently when the American Association of University Women held their senior expo there, that the sound system for a large event like that is really not up to par. Is there any funds allocated in that for upgrading the sound system? You know, or?
We'll pull that. I think there are some additional capital needs there. I think there was a sound system requested. No. I know we had.
We use the portables for those events, and they should be adequate. I'll do an assessment of the sound system and report back to Jason on it.
Yeah, because I heard it, again, from the people that hosted the events, and my understanding is that the building is wired for a built-in sound system.
Right.
We just don't have the actual equipment to do that.
Everything's external, but it should be adequate for the volume and broadcast. So let me do an assessment, and if not, we'll.
Yeah, check with Rich or Mike on that, please. Okay, thank you.
And I'd just like to follow up on a couple of things that Commissioner Zork just said about the pools and stuff. I mean, I will add the conservation lands and parks generally on there. I mean, there's talk over years of what are essential services and what aren't. But the more time I spend in government and thinking about the problems in our community overall, and then seeing different reports that come out of the benefits of more physical activities, both, particularly outside in conservation lands, for both physical and mental health. I mean, to me, they are essential services. And a lot of problems we don't have and that don't perk up to either mental health units or to criminal units, or I think because we have more and better places for our youth to go and for other citizens to go to basically get a better life. And when you also realize that a lot of things we do actually inhibit activities and add stress, like traffic and other things, I think that these are crucial to a good community. So I'm fully supportive of all those things that we're doing to increase those particular services. Again, any other questions for Jason on the MSTU? If not, I'll ask if there's anybody in the public who would like to comment on these items from the MSTU. And if they're not, Jason.
Next, we have the Transportation Fund. So what we have here is 3 additional full-time positions. One of those is a position to help maintain the Osprey Acres Stormwater Park that did just open July 5th. So anybody in the public, if you haven't seen it, it's a great facility. It's something that's cleaning the canal water before it goes to the lagoon, and there's tremendous walking trails there. Also, an additional position in traffic engineering and engineering. Increased health insurance costs are impacting this budget by $171,420. We did, as the board, approve the engineering fees that were effective March 1st. If you'll recall, we did add some positions to the current year budget that weren't funded by these revenues as we were still going through that process. We are expecting some increased revenue from those engineering fees to help offset the review costs. So that, and the Transportation Fund does not have its own millage, but is supported by a mix of gas taxes and transfers from the general fund and MSTU. So it's presented with the taxing funds. So Road and Bridge, $8,585,978, down $603,167, or 6.6%. The reason for the decrease is there's a significant amount of capital and equipment that was purchased this year, including a long-reach excavator that will allow us to get in and clean the water lettuce out of those main relief canals. So that is another thing that we will have an improved ability that's on order, and not sure if it's come in yet. If not, it should be here soon, and we will be able to beef up our efforts again in our ongoing quest to improve the health of the lagoon. Next is Public Works, $362,756, a decrease of $11,004 or 2.9%. County Engineering, $2,493,260, an increase of $197,473 or 7.2%. The additional positions impacting that. Traffic Engineering, $2,676,292, an increase of $86,165 or 3.3%. And Stormwater, $1,078,028, an increase of $72,438 or 7.2%. Those are the departments in the Transportation Fund.
Any questions for Jason on the Transportation Fund? Anybody from the public want to comment on anything in the Transportation Fund? Jason?
All right. Emergency Services District. So overall, the tax roll was up 7.1% here. Brings us $2.2 million. No change in the millage rate. We got a staffing increase of 13.5 positions. That 0.5, as I mentioned before, is half of the fire chief's position. 7 of those are to fund a new ambulance at the Station 5, Winter Beach. In the central part of the county, we've got 3 additional positions that will free up our captains. Currently, they ride on apparatus. This will free up our captains to do some more of the administrative function, which also our captain position is the position that's the kind of the training ground for our battalion chiefs. So it's kind of they're right now busy going out on calls, and it's hard for them to do some of the scheduling and the admin work that they need to do because they get pulled away from it. So we've got those positions as well. In addition, we've got some additional positions in fire prevention. The reason for that is so that we can maintain the ongoing inspections that are needed of our various safety-sensitive facilities throughout the county. We have been struggling to keep up with that work, so those are intended to help us with that effort. So the health insurance cost here is over $300,000. We do expect an increase of about $150,000 from the ALS billing charges for when we transport folks to the hospital. There's the millage history. We decreased the millage during the good times, kept it down during the downturn. We have had a couple of increases as we added new stations over the last few years, stations 13, 14, and 15. But the good news is we do not recommend, we do not see a need for a millage rate increase here, even though we are adding some staffing there. So there is a detail of the Emergency Services District budget by function. So the increase is $635,024, or 1.5%.
Any questions on the emergency services, Commissioner?
Yes, Jason, while you're not recommending an increase, when we look at Station 7, are we funded for Station 7, or is there a timeline?
So yes, great question. We do have funding for Station 7, also Station 15. Those are our two stations that are currently housed in a modular building. We do have funds programmed to acquire land and build stations for 7 and 15 in our capital program. Right now, we're just trying to acquire the sites. We've got to land on that right location for those stations, and then we will move forward with construction.
On both?
On both, yeah. I would anticipate Station 7 happening earlier than Station 15, just based on where the land situation is between those two.
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
Any other questions by commissioners? Anybody from the public wish to comment on the Emergency Services District? Jason? Up with one gentleman coming down. Name and address for your record, please.
John O'Connor, 2076 35th Avenue, President, IFF Local 2201. I just would ask the commission to keep in mind that everybody's really watching. We have quite a few employees that are watching this budget hearing right now, and the proposed increases are, the mill rate's staying flat. The proposed increases are nominal at best. If we're going to lose potentially 30 to 50 guys as soon as this budget's approved because the mill rate's been set, the county's going to be paying overtime for it. And that's at time and a half and not at a flat rate. So I urge this commission to, consider those facts when you're setting these mill rates right now. And I know it's great to keep the mill rate flat, but at what expense to the taxpayer moving forward. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public?
Well, Jason, can you go back to the slide that shows the millage rate over the last 5 years? And I think we can point out that we have increased it. I see 1, 2, 3, 4 bumps in the last 5 years. So we have increased the millage rate over that period of time. And that was also coinciding with the increase in the tax roll. So I think we have significantly increased the emergency services budget, both from the tax roll and from the millage point of view. So.
Right, and yeah, so Commissioner O'Brien makes a great point. We had some significant millage increases in the Emergency Services District in prior years that hadn't happened in the other funds, in the general fund, the MSTU fund, which has enabled us to, I think we can fund the needs that we have. We're currently, I think John is referring to some recruitment retention. concerns he has. We have some concerns about recruitment retention. We are working with the through the collective bargaining process between management and the union. We have funds included in the proposed budget to provide some increases there. May not be there. There's always a difference. That's why it's a negotiation between where the two parties are. But I think this is not something that is going to necessarily. We're attempting to address the pay and benefits package of the fire rescue department while balancing that against the concern to spend taxpayer dollars frugally. But I think we've got something, and I think we can get to where we need to go with the proposed budget.
Anybody else from the public wish to speak on this issue? Mr. Brown?
Okay, state agencies. So these are the various state departments and functions that we have responsibilities to fund. New Horizons, $319,884. That's up $9,309 or 3%. State Health Department, $717,155, up $20,888. These are, I should mention, you can find the detail on pages 31, 69, and 70 of these things. I've been neglecting those page numbers, sorry about that. Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council, $65,285, up $1,231 or 1.9%. The Indian River Lagoon National Estuary Program, the dues for that $50,000, no change from the current year. Department of Juvenile Justice, this is to fund one of my favorite unfunded mandates from the state, where this was several years ago, but one year we don't have enough money to fund juvenile justice, and they said, hey, counties, you're going to pay for X. So that is $400,000, which is down $50,000 based on our experience that we've had. Medicaid, here's another one, $1,309,803, $80,902. This was an unfunded mandate from about 6 years ago, where the state was kind enough to give us more responsibility on Medicaid than we had before. Environmental Control Board, $7,033, no change from the current year. Circuit Court expenses, $387,493. That is down $9,877. Now that is in total. I will say the impact on the general fund is an increase of about $150,000 here, because we were able to fund that portion from a court technology fee that doesn't impact the general fund, but we've lost that ability, and so the entire amount has to be funded from the general fund. Next is Guardian Ad Litem, $137,821, a decrease of $15,986 or 10.4%. Victims Assistance Program, which is run by the State Attorney's Office, $72,218, an increase of $3,256 or 4.7%. State Attorney, $317,525, an increase of $12,302 or 4%. Public Defender, $93,357, up $12,866 or 16%. Medical Examiner, $451,906, down $2,461 or 0.5%. I will say watch this space going forward. Medical Examiner is retiring. I think Commissioner Flesher is on that committee, so there are some challenges there and some changes in the relationship between IRSC and the Medical Examiner that's been housed at the IRSC campus, but there may be additional facility needs in future years here. And while I'm at that, we've got the Guardian Ad Litem, which we are working with the other 3 counties on a permanent facility for them in St. Lucie County, which will have a significant capital contribution, but should save us a significant amount on rent in the end, because right now they're renting their facilities in Port St. Lucie. But there will be more to come on those 2 areas in the next year or two. State Forestry, $13,822, no change there. So those are the state agencies.
Any questions by commissioners for the state agencies? There being none, I'll ask if there's anybody from the public who wishes to comment on the state agencies. You can use the closer podium if you want. Name and address for the record, please.
Commissioners, I wanted to introduce myself. I'm Lawrence Merman, the Chief Judge of the 19th Circuit, and I wanted to thank you for your support. The facility, the Indian River Courthouse is exemplary, continues to be exemplary. I know you continue to assist us in that regard. The other programs that assist us carry out our mandate you've been very helpful with and very much appreciated. I just took over July 1st, so this is the first opportunity I really have to come and meet you. I know the sheriff knows who I am. I was just recounting, we both recount a story from 1989 when I first started at the state attorney's office. I was there for 16 years. My second jury trial I ever tried was a DUI case, and I called a witness from Florida Highway Patrol who's this very well-dressed, very intelligent trooper, beyond the average trooper, if you don't mind me saying. And that was the sheriff. So here we are 30 years later. I'm the chief judge, and he's the
You can see what happens
sheriff.
over the years.
Yes. So I couldn't help but take that time to tell that story here before you. If you have any questions for me, I'm open to questions, but I want to thank you for your support going forward. I'll always be
One
available to you.
Question, you said there's a $2 fee that was supposed to go to technology? So where is that fee going now, if it's not technology?
We still receive it. It's just not enough because,
Okay.
so it's not just the court, it also is shared by guardian ad litem, state attorney, and public defender. And it's basically, we've been using up more than has been coming in, and we are, this is that spending your reserves down thing. We've been spending it there because we've been trying to keep it off the general fund, but that has come to an end, and the $2 charge is just not sufficient to cover all of the needs of the court system.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much, Judge.
Welcome back, Counsel.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
on that note, Jason, is there a number that is adequate that we want to add to our legislative priorities? We're not the only county in the same boat, I'm sure.
Right, I can tell you, so in the 19th Circuit, you've got us, St. Lucie, Martin, and Okeechobee. They are all having to dip into the general fund to fund this, and I would assume the same is occurring across the state. So, yeah, it might be something that is worth putting on our legislative program, because if you look at that, it was an amendment to the state constitution that said the state will fund the court system, and the answer was, obviously they're state employees and various things are directly funded by the state, but we have certain responsibilities like facilities and technology. And the state's answer was basically, well, you guys have to fund technology, but here's a revenue source, so we're funding it.
So is that like a $2 to $4 amount or $2 to $5 amount, or is there an estimate of, we could work that out later?
Yeah, I'd have to look at the specifics, and it's a $2 per page recording fee, and it just seems to not really make the mark there, and I think it's across the state that's experienced the same. Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public wish to comment on the state agencies? Good morning, name and address for the record, please.
Good morning. I'm Miranda Hawker. I'm the health officer for the county at the Florida Department of Health in Indian River. And I just wanted to thank all of you for your support of the county health department. I know that our collaboration makes a huge difference in the public health for our residents. I also did specifically want to comment on Commissioner Solari, your support of the parks and the linkage to our public health and mental health, as well as the pool system that all of you had discussed. As you know, both our childhood obesity rates and certainly our adult obesity rates are of concern within our county, and those opportunities for physical activity are important when we talk about public health. But again, we continue to work hard to improve public health within our county, and we look forward to working with you over the next year.
And thank you very much for the service you provide our county.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public? Jason?
All right, moving on. Economic Development Division. The recommended budget is $228,505. That is an increase of $41,255, or 22% from the current year. The main driver here is an additional position to help Helene out, a business that would focus, I think, on business retention. I think a portion of the costs they're looking at from private funds as well, but that is the request and the recommended amount. So that's economic development.
So you're going to take this separately, or do all four of the non-departmental?
We can
Why don't you do
go
all
on
four?
through. We'll do all of them. And again, that was on page 31. This is page 32. Children's Services, as we mentioned, $2,062,611. The increase is $397,146, or an increase of 23.8%, and this gets us to the full 0.125 mil contemplated in the county ordinance, and the board approved the individual allocations earlier this month. On that, next is community redevelopment areas. We have two of those. One is the Sebastian CRA. The amount there is $221,000, an increase of $11,000, or 5.2%. The Fellsmere CRA, we have going up $18,000, which is $18,000, an increase of $6,000, or 50%. And these are just basically a creature of what happens to the taxable value in those areas. And one of the things where I'm always jealous of the cities that we get additional tax dollars and have to send it to them. I wish we could do the same.
But I'll ask if there are any questions on the board on the non-departmental. Anybody from the public wish to comment on any of the last four items?
Nope.
Good morning. Name and address for the record, please.
Good morning. Helene Castletine, Economic Development Director with the Indian River County Chamber of Commerce. And I just want to thank you for your continuous support over the years of our economic development activities. And those activities have really significantly increased over the past few years. And over the last 15 years, I've been it. Your recruitment, retention, expansion, small business development. So what we're proposing is to hire another full-time person to focus on the business retention and expansion activities, which is a crucial component of our economic development plan. And that person also, should this designation come through, that person would also be involved with the foreign trade zone activities. So I think they would have a full plate, and that would redirect my activities to focus a little bit more on the recruitment side of the house. So that's where those funds come in, as Jason had mentioned, and I really appreciate your continuous support over the years. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I do see that the Veterans Council is here, and I just want to note, I appreciate their humble request. They do a lot, and as I noted earlier, when you look at other jurisdictions and what the constitutionals are doing and the gladiatorial effect upon the commission in other jurisdictions, the great relationship we have, and our veterans are serving veterans and serving many people in the public, and their humble request. I just want to acknowledge not only their presence, but the fact that they work an even-keel budget, so much so they actually hired somebody who used to be in any River County employee. Jim Romanek is here, and he's going to keep their budget where it's got to be as well. So thank you. Just want to acknowledge.
And with that, Jason, we'll segue into nonprofit organizations.
All right, so we have the Mental Health Association, $23,843, an increase of $422. That's an increase of 1.8%. United Against Poverty, $10,642, 1.8% increase there. 211, Palm Beach and Treasure Coast, $10,642, an increase of 1.8%, and those are all per county policy. The Veterans Council, $90,000, up $3,700, or 4.3%. Keep Indian River Beautiful, which is funded out of the SWID budget, $55,454, an increase of $2641, or 5%. And those are on pages 32, and they Keep Indian River Beautiful is on page 43.
Commissioners, any comments on the or questions on the nonprofits? There being none, I'll ask if there's anybody from the audience who wishes to comment or ask any questions on the nonprofit organizations. Morning, name and address for the record, please.
Good morning, Angela Gazinski, COO of Mental Health Association. So I wanted to just be present and thank you for your continued support to run our walk-in and counseling center, which actually gives immediate access to people in mental health crisis. So we're able to do that for free for Indian River County residents, as well as have a sliding fee schedule for those that don't have insurance and be able to afford mental health help. As well as in our drop-in centers for the severe and persistent mentally ill and helping them gain accessibility to services. So I just wanted to thank you on behalf of Mental Health Association.
Thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Either or. Names and address for the record, please.
You gave them a shout out and they came.
Good morning, Commissioners. Morning, Jason. How you doing? Long time no see. Thank you for your support, but I would like to introduce our first Vice President, Lieutenant Colonel Curtis Holden. He's also in charge of our Transportation Department, and I just wanted to let him say a few words, if you don't mind.
And your name, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Jim Romanek. I'm the Executive Director for the Veterans Council.
And over here is Pat Geyer. You all know she's the budget coordinator. Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners. I get the opportunity to talk to 15 to 25 passengers a day, and they really appreciate our service, and we get more bang for our buck out of this money to take care of our veterans. A lot of them have certain issues, and they really depend on us a lot. So, and also, Commissioner Fletcher, coming to the meetings, you get to hear me talk about what's going on with the transportation, maintenance, and all that, and all the things, and getting ridership up. I appreciate you supporting us.
Thank you all for all you do, Lieutenant Colonel.
And thank you all for
All our
both your
veterans.
past and present service to the community.
Thank you.
Anybody else from the public wish to comment? Name and address for the record, please.
Hi, good morning. My name is Colleen Phillips. I'm the Community Relations Specialist for 211 Helpline. Just wanted to show my gratitude and support for you all. So thank you so much for your continued support for us over the years. We are a free and confidential community helpline and crisis intervention hotline available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year to residents here in Indian River County. I did want to share a piece of information that we have from our snapshots that we compile yearly for the data that we see on the calls we receive. And last year we responded to almost 6,000 calls from Indian River County. So people that are potentially in very serious crisis situations that otherwise would have no outlets for help. We are that centralized gatekeeper to get them connected to almost 1,600 agencies that we have in our database. I also wanted to share that we responded to nearly 96 suicide calls on our suicide prevention lifeline. So we know that there is certainly a great need in this community. So again, I just wanted to show my support and thank you so much for your continued support of our agency here in Indian River.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Sir.
Morning, Philip Keeling, Development Manager, United Against Poverty. On behalf of the 750 people we serve each day in Indian River County, we wanted to thank you for your ongoing support. This year, 360 participants had an annualized wage impact of $7.7 million in Indian River County. So we wanted to thank you for your ongoing support.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? There being none, Mr. Brown. Quasi-nonprofit organizations.
All right, quasi-nonprofits, and so, as the board knows, these quasi-nonprofits are nonprofit organizations that provide a function that the county would otherwise have to provide, or that we have a contract with them to provide this services. So first up is Senior Resource Association. The proposed amount is $1,160,000. That is an increase of $44,200 or 4% from the current year. What you see on the next line is the grants that we received from the state and federal agencies to assist in running the bus program. So that line, the top line is the local contribution for the operation of the GO line and our community coach. And then the current year, we don't have any of those grants, and we do those through budget amendment once we get them. So there's $3.7 million that we're able to leverage those local dollars for. Next is Senior Resource Association Senior Services that the county provides some funding for, $125,927. Those are the Meals on Wheels and programs like that that we help support, provide matching dollars for grants for them as well. Gifford Youth Achievement Center, $99,601, an increase of 1.8% as well, per our contract with GYAC. Gifford Progressive Civic League, $12,185, no change. Humane Society, $370,547, no change, and that is our contract where we pay the Humane Society an amount per the contract, and that is an estimate from us for no increase. Next is Treasure Coast Homeless Services Council, $15,270, no change there, and that helps support that agency, which has been successful at receiving many grants to help house the homeless in Indian River County. So those are the quasi-nonprofits.
Jason, just so the public doesn't get too excited, on the senior resource grants, we probably expect those grants to come in this year. They're just not there because we haven't been certain yet. So we probably will not be getting a drop of 67.4%, but we still will get the goal line service. So we're good with that, but I just didn't want to shake up the public too much one way or the other.
Yes, that's true. We continue to operate the GO line. There's no expected interruption in services. This is the way it goes every year. We just don't have those federal grants in hand. We'll do budget amendments as we get them, but we continue to operate the bus system because while we know the federal government's slow, they'll eventually get there and get the allocations approved. So
I'll ask commissioners if they have any questions of Jason on the quasi-nonprofits. With the commissioner's leeway, I'm going to go back up to non-departmental matters because I believe that the public defender's here and she may want to say a couple words.
Good morning.
Name and
You guys
address.
are getting faster every year. I figured, okay, I'll get there. I'll be another hour, maybe. No, I just thank you. I know you approved the budget, but I always like to come if I can and thank all of you for your help and support and.
Name and address for the record, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Diamond Liddy. I'm the public defender of the 19th Judicial Circuit.
Thank you.
And I still love my job.
Great.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming today.
Okay.
Anybody else from the public wish to speak on the quasi-nonprofit organizations? Good morning. Name and address for the record, please.
Good morning. I'm Karen Deagle, the CEO with the Senior Resource Association, and I just want to say thank you again for all of your support, continued support throughout the years, for both the transit system and the senior services. The transit system is doing very, very well. In fact, in June, we had our largest ridership number ever for the month of June. It was over 120,000 riders. So we are very appreciative. I do have to say that Commissioner Fleischer, what you had commented earlier about support in this community compared to others. As you know, we are a transportation provider for another county, and I have to say that the support that we receive here really attributes to what we're able to provide for our residents, and allows us to provide better quality of life for those residents. So thank you for all your support in that. Thank you to the staff for your support. Jason and Kristen this year, you've been wonderful to work with. Certainly Brian and Phil and Dylan and the attorney's office, and also Beth Martin. We do have some incidences that happen with transit, kind of bumper cars sometimes, and Beth is certainly very helpful with our risk management. On the senior service side, again, thank you for your support for the match dollars for senior services, our adult daycare, our Meals on Wheels. We're providing services to over 550 residents in this community, and without your help, those would be limited. So again, thank you very much for everything.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public wish to speak on the quasi-nonprofit organizations? If there be none, I think this is a great time for a 10-minute break. Thanks. Education Safety Act.
Dory Schlossberg. So what we have is recommended a $49,000 amount to the school district, which is an increase of $1,000 from the current year. That's in line with their request, and we have $8,000 in a reserve for contingency, and this is the $5 that is charged on various traffic infractions to help support driver's education, and so that is recommended as requested by the school district. That's on page 69.
Any questions on the Doris Schlossberg? Anybody from the public wish to comment on that?
No, it's just great to see that it is open and active, and coupled with the new legislation for texting while driving, I think many lives will be saved going forward.
Very good. Mr. Brown, land acquisition bonds.
All right, land acquisition bonds, that's our last taxing fund. These are the bonds approved by the voters in 2004 to acquire conservation and historic and agricultural lands. The budget is $4,551,103, a decrease of $133,123. Have basically level debt service here, a slight decrease in the budget this year, and that has enabled us to lower the millage rate to 0.2568, which is down about 9.1% from the current year.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Question on those, Jason. Those are nearing the wind-down period. We're roughly 3 years left?
2021, I think, is when those reach maturity, yeah, so.
Okay. In some of the bonds I've seen where sort of your last payment is either accumulated through the process, so you don't have to fund the last year, how is the debt structure on this one? Is there anything in reserve that goes towards the last payment?
We have a small amount. It'll help reduce. I want to say maybe $700,000-800,000 sitting in there. Maybe that we'll be able to possibly lower the millage in that last year based on the balance on hand.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions of Mr. Brown? Anybody from the public wish to comment on?
Well, now we pretty much ran out of the
We
public.
we are.
We have a member of public.
There's a lot at home that we just can't hear them.
Thank you for coming, Mr. Paladin. Without you, we'd be without the public.
But there's so many more watching from the comfort of their home.
Yeah, do you know both of their names? Mr. Brown.
All right, I'm going to turn it over to Kristen Daniels, our budget director. And I just want to take an opportunity to, I didn't introduce the rest of my crew here. So we've got Kristen Daniels, who is the budget director for about 7 months now. She's doing a tremendous job. We've got Alex Montoya is our new budget analyst, and we've got Ruth Bomarito and Carol Bergeron, and they do a great job for us and try and make me look good on days like this, which is a big job, admittedly. So with that, I'll turn it over to Kristen.
Thank you, team.
Thank you, Jason. Yeah. Thanks.
I'm helping.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kristen Daniels, Budget Director. Before you is the street lighting district assessments. We only have one proposed change here, which is a decrease. So this first section is charged on a per parcel acre basis. So I'll go ahead and read through. We have the Gifford street lighting district at
Kristen,
23.
I'm afraid that, if we do have to read through them, we cannot take Commissioner Adams' job away from her. So
Oh, you want to read them?
we're going to let her do that.
Absolutely. Have at
Commissioner
it.
Adams, the floor is yours.
I even had it right here.
She has
ready
notes
to
on it.
go. All right. Gifford, $23 per parcel acre. Laurelwood, $36 per parcel acre. Rock Ridge, $7 per parcel acre. Vero Highlands, $36 per parcel acre. Porpoise Point, $10 per parcel acre. Laurel Court, $39 per parcel acre. Tierra Linda, $39 per parcel acre. Vero Shores, $24 per parcel acre. Exora Park, $20 per parcel acre. Royal Poinciana, $39 per parcel acre. Roseland, $1 per parcel acre. Whispering Pines, $16 per parcel acre. Moorings, $9 per parcel acre. Walker's Glen, $20 per parcel acre. Glendale Lakes, $40 per parcel acre. Floralton Beach, $46 per parcel acre. West Wabasso, $21 per parcel acre. Oceanside, $51 per lot. Oslo Park, $15.68 per lot.
Exceptionally well done. Thank you very much.
Well done.
Wow, can we go
I
with this one?
practice. I
She
practice
is our
all week.
shining star, looky there.
And Mr. Chairman, as a note, this may be the very last year that Commissioner Adams has the opportunity to do that.
No, next year.
Well, again, if history is...
Won't be any other newer
No,
commissioners by
no,
next
but
year.
if history has any bearing on this there, as she is vice chairman this year, there may be an opportunity for her to invoke the chairman's rule.
No. Tradition, long-standing tradition. Long-standing tradition absolutely overcomes.
There will
any
be 3
chairman's
votes to
rule.
overturn the chairman.
Yes.
Wow.
Absolutely. Well, let's make that clear now.
Just a thought, we
Yeah.
have a year to go.
I'll continue to practice.
Stifle such thoughts, Commissioner.
And
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to point out the Oslo Park one is being reduced because we've installed I forget the total number, but a lot of new streetlights in that neighborhood. And the residents 3 years ago said they wanted to be taxed for that, to get those streetlights in there. And so now we've got the installation costs covered, and it's dropping now to just to cover the actual electric bill. So I'm pleased to report that we've got all those lights installed. And thank you to our Rich Spirica and also FP&L for getting those in.
Very good. Well, there is nobody from the public who wishes to comment on this. Ms. Daniels.
Thank you. Next, we have the MSBU's. There are also no proposed changes in the rates here. We have the Vero Lake Estates MSBU at $50 per parcel acre. The East Gifford Stormwater MSBU at $10 per parcel acre. And the Oceanside Street Paving MSBU at $450 per lot.
Any questions on the other MSBU's? Anybody from the public? Ms. Daniels.
Okay, I'll cover enterprise funds, and we're gonna pass it back to Kristen for internal service. So, first we have the golf course, $3,105,394, an increase of $119,332. No major changes here. The rates will remain unchanged. No change in the rates there. I can't remember the last time we had an increase in rates, so I think that's a testament to the management there, and they've done a great job operating that facility. Building department, $5,041,993. That's an increase of $395,760. We do have an additional position here that is a liaison type position to help out with the plans examiners of the day and help out with some customer service in the department there, helping folks through the process. Do want to mention here that we have planned to implement a new software system for our permit review. Building will be leading the charge on that, so we have funds available for that, and we'll be bringing something back to the board on that with our plans for moving forward with some more efficient permitting software going forward. Next is utilities, $48,518,774. That's an increase of $1,409,296. I talked about the additional treatment to meet the advanced wastewater treatment standards, which is a goal. We don't know if that's going to work, but that's our intention. It has worked out at West Regional, and we're hopeful it will at Central and South, with the goal of reducing those nutrients. So utilities rates, if you'll recall, earlier this year, the board approved the new utility rate system. And at this time each year is when we are to decide whether a CPI adjustment is needed. Based on the early payoff of the 2009 utility bonds, that's going to free up somewhere around $2 million in cash flow on the debt service each year. So for that reason, staff is not recommending the CPI adjustment this year, but I don't expect that to be a pattern. I anticipate we will need that CPI adjustment on a relatively regular basis going forward. So just wanted to mention that this is the first time that we're doing that, and we're not recommending it this year, but I would anticipate that we'll be needing that in future years.
Listen, you forgot about the AMRs, and that's going to save enough so we don't have to increase it next year.
Always the eternal optimist.
That's at least something to aspire towards.
Yeah, there is the potential, but I just want to I want to make sure that the board's aware that we're not recommending it this year, but that's something that will be up for consideration each year.
I mean, I just remember yesterday the utilities director saying smarter, not harder. And in their competition with the Public Works Department, I expect things like that to actually happen. So you might remind the utilities director of that.
Will do, and our goal is never to charge our residents, our taxpayers, or ratepayers any more than we have to.
I mean, I've seen Public Works machinery, they can lift big packages. Utilities ought to lift their own big packages, and that's, I think, keeping, without going forward with the CPI. So I'm done with that one for today. I've now made up for the comment I made yesterday with the Public Works Director, so I'm good.
And he's here now, too.
Here's my audience of one.
All right.
Back to the screen.
Internal.
On the building department, we have the funded new position, but we still have a number of posted open positions being filled by private providers that hopefully someday, there's significant cost savings when we go from in-house to private provider. I don't know the exact numbers, but it's at least $40,000 to $50,000 less per inspector if we can make that person in-house. And there is a balancing act. You want to have some private providers so when things slow down, you can cut their services off versus layoff. But I think we've got some private providers that have had a significant career here. They've been here for a number of years. And that's really helped fill the void, but, if we can, any other way we can become more enticing to save that $50,000 per slot or per person would just help benefit the enterprise fund more.
Right, yes, and it's trying to just achieve that delicate balance. It's hard to recruit those folks, and as you stated, we know the construction industry has its ups and its downs. Sometimes it's not very smooth, and it does give us some flexibility with the private providers, and we do continue to try and recruit those permanent employees because the cost on an hourly basis is lower for an ongoing employee.
And they've also, there's been consolidation. Some of the higher priced private providers bought out the lower cost private providers and then took that position and raised it up to their rates. So they appreciate the opportunity to work here.
Any other questions on the enterprise funds? There being none, move on to internal service funds.
I'll pick back up on the internal service funds. First, we have our fleet management division. The proposed budget is $4,027,893. This is a $364,847 increase. We do have an additional mechanic position here, and then also the $100,000 expense of the repair that's necessary out at our fleet fuel island canopy. Next, we have risk management. The proposed budget is $5,725,125. This is an increase of $856,752. We did see an increase in our premiums there of 6.5%, and then we're also seeing an increase in our workers' comp expenses. Next is the Employee Health Insurance Fund. The proposed budget is $24,257,774, an increase of $2,510,353. This is the increase for the rise in health insurance costs and also the increase in our employee and employer contributions. Lastly, we have the Information Technology Fund. The proposed budget is $3,216,933, an increase of $1,043,418. As mentioned before, we have the addition of the IT director there, and then also telecommunications is now joining this fund.
Thank you. Any questions on the internal service funds? There being none, we can move ahead to the miscellaneous funds.
Okay. Miscellaneous funds, we'll start with the traffic improvement fee fund. The proposed budget is $5,152,500. This is a decrease of $4,041,500. This is a fluctuation in planned capital in our CIE plan. We have next the impact fee, our additional impact fee fund. The budget there is $1,686,891, a decrease of $1,283,324. Again, this is just the fluctuation of our planned capital projects. Next, we have our Section 8 rental assistance. The proposed budget is $2,379,195, a decrease of $14,393. We have our secondary roads fund. The proposed budget is $6,781,034. This is a decrease of $10,119,580. Again, a fluctuation in the budget of the capital projects there as well. We have our tree ordinance fund. The proposed budget there is $50,000. This is a decrease of $373,660. This is due to a median improvement project that we had budgeted in fiscal year 18-19. Next, we have our tourist development fund. The proposed budget is $998,450, a decrease of $1,550,000. The funding there is actually flat. That decrease is due to an interfund loan to fund the Major League Baseball Jackie Robinson Training Complex facility lease agreement. That money will be paid back as those funds are accumulated. Next, we have the 911 surcharge fund. The budget there is $1,410,156, an increase of $93,746. The drug abuse fund, the requested budget there was $50,000. That is an increase of $25,000. Next, we have our SHIP program. The proposed budget is $734,290, a decrease of $199,805. This is also a rollover of unused grant funds that were not spent in the prior year. Next, we have our Metropolitan Planning Organization, our MPO. The proposed budget is $665,078, a decrease of $185,434. This is mainly because the long-range transportation plan was budgeted in fiscal year 18-19 for $200,000. That money will be rolled over into the upcoming year if unspent at the end of 18-19. And lastly, we have the Native Uplands Fund. The proposed budget is $240,000, an increase of $25,000. So next we have our Beach Restoration Fund. The proposed budget is $2,119,677. This is a decrease of almost $4.7 million. That is due to the Sector 5 project that is budgeted in 18-19. That is scheduled to start in the fall, and those funds will be rolled over into 19-20. Next, we have the NSP program. The proposed budget is $0. That's a decrease of $750,000. This was a one-time grant that we received and again will be rolled over. The Florida Boating Improvement Program is $70,000 proposed for 19-20. That's a decrease of $416,194. Our intergovernmental grants, these are our HUD grants. They fluctuate from year to year. Also, the proposed budget is $686,070. or a decrease of $257,829 when compared to last year. We have our traffic education program, our Dory Schlossberg, the budget remains flat at $57,000. Next is our court facility surcharge fund. The proposed budget is $227,501, a decrease of $116,967. This decrease was due to new courtroom facilities that were budgeted in 1819. Fund 141, our additional court costs, the proposed budget is $93,986, an increase of $57. Fund 142 is our court technology fund. The proposed budget is $328,312, or a decrease of $147,429. This is where Jason had mentioned before that the court administrator would now be funded from the general fund because we were short in revenues to make it there. And then lastly, we have our land acquisition bond. The proposed budget there is $210,000, a decrease of $92,645.
Thank you. Any questions on the miscellaneous funds? There being none?
Chair, actually, I've got a comment to make. Earlier, there was some discussion about court cost issues, and I saw it come up again in this section. I just wanted to note that in our legislative priorities packet from last year, within the list of concerns was that the county was going to support policies to increase the service fee charged for recording documents and instruments. So I just want to let the board know that we already had kind of have that in our legislative priorities list and packet.
I guess we'll be keeping it there for at least another year.
Well, till September, right?
Well,
Or no.
through September for another year.
Right, for the policy meeting for FAC in September.
Yeah. So then move on to debt service capital projects.
Yes, next we have our debt service capital funds. We'll start with Fund 204, our Dodgertown bonds. The 1920 proposed budget is $500,000. This is a decrease of $3,240,000. This is a result of that partial payment that we did for $1,125,000. What's remaining is that $500,000 that's funded annually by the state contribution that we receive. Next is the Jackie Robinson Training Complex Fund, formerly known as a Dodgertown Capital Reserve Fund. The budget there is $800,000, a decrease of $1,050,000. What happened there is at the beginning of that lease, the initial $800,000 payment had to be funded in January and again in September. The lease is normally funded in September, so this past year we had 2 years in one fiscal year. And lastly, we have our optional sales tax fund. The proposed budget is $31,560,215, a decrease of $12,180,295. And again, this is just a fluctuation in capital projects planned from year to year.
Any question on the capital funds? There being none, Jason, I think that's as far as we can go before the 1:30 time certain for the solid waste disposal district. Can you see?
Yeah, unless there's any, we could talk about the taxing funds, but we may want to hold off on that in case there's something on the sheriff's office that might delay that, but.
So with that, I believe we will adjourn until 1:30 this afternoon.
Wow.
It's 1:30, time for that. Continuation of the Indian River County Budget Workshop. We are now at the 1:30 time certain for the Solid Waste Disposal District. And I will pass it over to Mr. Brown, who's going to lead us through the solid waste issues and charges for the year.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. For most of us, 2-hour lunch is long enough. So if I can find my page here we are. All right, the Solid Waste Disposal District, the proposed budget is $17,857,578. That is a decrease of $4.4 million. And after you deduct the capital outlay, it's $16,237,578, an increase of $402,676. The difference in that top line item was a change in capital projects. We had significant landfill closure costs going on this year. The recommended budget includes one additional position, a second professional position to help the solid waste director. As you all know, we've been very busy in SWID, got a lot of things going on, including the cell closure, new cell construction, recycling contamination, RFPs for rock crushing and veg waste, leachate disposal issues, and all types of changes in the regulatory environment. We're looking at potential changes in the recycling regime at the state. So we're recommending that we add that position. If you'll recall, we used to have an additional position that had been cut during the downturn. And in order for us to try and be proactive rather than reacting and putting fires out, we're recommending that additional position there. Based on the recommended budget, we are also continuing to set aside $500,000 a year for future cell construction costs. So as you'll recall, last year we started doing that for the first time, explicitly setting aside money for new cell construction. As you know, we are required to set aside money to care for old cells that were for closing a cell and maintaining it afterwards. That's a counting and state law requirement. But we are now doing the $500,000 towards the new cell construction per year, which we think gets us on a better footing when those new cells come up for construction. As we know, the one we're working on right now is $8 million, so it makes sense to set that money aside as we go. So the proposed solid waste district non-ad valorem assessments for the residential ERU is $120.90. That's up $4.05. The commercial rate per WGU is $42. That's up $1.50 from the current year, and the readiness to use fee is $24.69, up 9 cents. And we are planning a review of the tipping fees in the upcoming fiscal year. Something will bring the results of that back. We have not adjusted our tipping fees in many years there out at SWID. So with that, that is the recommended solid waste disposal district budget, and I'm available for questions. And this is a public hearing per requirements of the county code.
Any questions for Mr. Brown?
I don't have a question, but I would like to bring something to the board's attention. So a week and a half ago, we had a presentation from the Utilities Department about the contamination in our recycling and the efforts we were undergoing there. And then just, if you remember, yesterday we voted for some tippage relief for our recycle hauler Tropical because of the amount of contamination that was coming from our recycling program. And we've implemented the educational program and the code enforcement, and I think these are good things to do. I'm concerned that they're not enough. And I looked up the rate, and we had briefly talked about the countywide mandatory pickup, and that rate currently from Waste Management is $8.10 per month. So what I would like to propose is that we add $48.60 to the solid waste assessment, which would cover 6 months of mandatory countywide pickup beginning April 1st. And the main reason I want to bring this up now is if the education and code enforcement does not resolve the contamination issue, it's going to be 14 months before we can take any other corrective action. And I think by that time, we may very well lose Tropical as our company that takes our recycling. If we have to go to another sorting facility, that could be an extremely expensive option, particularly coming in where we would have very few options at that point. I know that other counties and municipalities have already scrapped and given up on their recycling program because they were losing so much money that it was just easier for them to landfill their recycling than to continue losing a large amount of money. And if we add it to our budget now, one, it'll go out on the trim notice, so the public will be notified of that, and hopefully maybe we'll have more people coming to the budget hearing in September. It'll give us 2 months between now and the final budget hearing where we can have further discussions on this. We have 3 meetings before the final budget hearing, and I would even support going to a special call meeting or a workshop so that we can make sure we thoroughly vent the idea or the concept of going to mandatory countywide collection. It would give us a couple months to coordinate with Waste Management to ensure that they would be able to start countywide pickup by April 1st. We would need to coordinate with the property appraiser and the tax collector on how we would handle that from a technical point of view. And if we decide not to go with mandatory countywide pickup, we always have the option to lower that assessment at our final or next to final budget hearing. So I'm not saying we need to make that decision right now to go to mandatory pickup, but if we put it in now, it gives us the opportunity to have further discussion. And then we do have that option that if we decide not to, then at that final or next to final budget hearing, we can remove that charge from the solid waste assessment. And then also, if we do decide to go with the mandatory pickup, then having kind of starting with a half a year would help ease into that transition, and the year after that would be, the full year of the cost. But I really think it's important that we put it in now so that we have these 2 months to continue to work on it and have more time to make a decision.
If I can, I'd like to recap a little bit of that as I understood it, just to see if we're in the same place. So you're talking about a $48 additional fee on the solid waste disposal section of the tax report, upcoming taxes that go out.
Correct.
And that would pay for 6 months of waste pickup for everybody in the county based on the rates. So that the
Unincorporated county.
in the unincorporated area of the county that we're responsible for. So the people who are getting the trash pickup wouldn't be billed by Waste Management. They'd be just, the county would be paying for it, but out of their tax dollars, which they've already paid in.
People
Okay.
currently on it now would continue to be billed by Waste Management through the end of March.
Through the end of March, but
Right.
no change, but after that, it'd be paid for by the county.
Switched over.
Yeah,
Very similar to the way recycling's done.
exactly.
And so, but we're not asking anybody to make any final decisions today. We just want to make sure that when the trim notices go out, those numbers are there so we can, because that's really the only way we can do it unless we want to wait for, like you said, 14 months.
Correct.
So,
We can't increase anything after today, but we can always lower.
so basically, this is simply giving us an option of going to mandatory pickup in April. An option that we basically lose at this time if we don't go forward with this.
Yes.
And then this gives us roughly the 2 months to actually make a decision on this. And actually we could actually make the decision afterwards. We just have collected extra tax dollars, which we could always remit in a past year if it happened, if it came down to it. Not the same, that's the,
Yeah,
okay, so I just want to make sure I understood it correctly. Any questions for Commissioner O'Brien on that?
Is that a motion?
I think since this is a public hearing, we normally can't make
No.
motions, so I would make that as a motion.
I'll go ahead and second it for discussion.
I have a question. So it's $48 in addition to what is proposed?
So the current residential ERU, or proposed, is $120.90.
Mm-hmm.
And that would then go to $169.70, if my math is correct.
But keeping in mind that that would actually in the upcoming fiscal year, for those people who already have trash pickup, their total amount that they will have paid for trash pickup at the end of the year will actually be reduced by some amount, while those people who haven't had trash pickup will now be paying the $48 off of their tax bill. So for some people, what's that? I'll ask Mr. Burke
I
if,
think it's about $2 a month lower for people.
you know, so they'll actually then save the $12 to $15, basically, the people who already have trash pickup.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes?
Couple questions. If we do this today and before our final hearing, so that landlord-tenant type arrangements have the opportunity to include it in lease renewals, we'll have to have some type of communication arm to make them be aware of, if they're renewing a lease, they need to potentially make an adjustment to their tenant to cover the additional charge, because normally the tenant would subscribe to waste management individually. If they're not, you know, there needs to be some true up on their side, but mainly just give them notice so that they know something's changing.
So as part of that, probably one of the best things we can do is put a buck slip in utility bills and things like that. So I'll leave that for Commissioner O'Brien to recommend at maybe even the next meeting or something like that, just to prepare for that. That's a
And
good
actually, if
point.
it goes to the tenant at the address, the landlord would get it, so we'd have to look at how do we.
We'll look at multiple ways. We know that there'll have to be 4 or 5 different ways we do it, but one of the quickest and surest ways is the buck slip. We'll have it on the TV, we'll announce it at a couple meetings, and we'll try to figure out other ways. We can talk to the Realtors Association and ask them to try to disseminate to their membership.
And I think Commissioners work to that point too. The trim notice should go out to the property owner.
True.
And so they will see that and that, maybe that's where, I don't know if we can have the little slip put in that envelope that the property appraiser sends out, but at least the dollar amount, they'll be able to see that and calculate their.
And we can
Change it,
we can
right.
get with the property appraiser and see if we can put 1 or 2 lines of explanation under it with a phone number to call, that sort of thing. But those are all details we'll have to get on reasonably quickly.
Do we have any updated, I know we talked with Waste Management about having them update their number, and is it true or not that the option to go to countywide pickup, that window has passed, so they have the right to reprice it, or is that not?
So that was my thinking initially. There is a 3-year, there's a provision, and we've actually got it here, in the contract that basically says that the initial price that was bid by Waste Management is adjusted by 75% of the change in the CPI for the first 3 years. After that, it is 100%. So there was actually on yesterday's agenda, the CPI adjustment for Waste Management, which we're all looking at the subscription rate and the other rates like the roll-off containers and all that stuff for commercial folks. But it's a mandatory rate, but in the contract it's called a universal rate that's there, and that is $8.10 a month.
Okay.
There is maybe some question about the interpretation of how that language is, so I'd prefer we might build in a
9 multiple.
for planning purposes, like 8 and 850.
Right.
There's also the 95% collection difference. So when we levy something, we don't get $100, we get 95, or we don't get $1, we get 95 cents. So
Ask for a little.
I'd be more comfortable saying 850, which covers a lot of things, which is $51. So it's just a little bit more if the board was to do this. And again, it is a ceiling as we're talking about. We could refine the numbers better if the board decides to go that road in September. But we do have that price, and it's contractually there. It's just a change in how the CPI is calculated. So it is a set price in our current franchise agreement with Waste Management.
Mr. Fletcher?
Fully supportable. I realize that after today, we cannot do that increase, and it is going to take some time. Gave it some thought at the last meeting when we discussed that we're going to revisit this within the next 6 months. I don't know if we should get mired into a lot of the technicalities. I mean, we're looking at convenience centers, recycling. You mentioned that some entities have eliminated their recycling, which I don't support. I think we should give all that we can towards recycling for the future. But with that, fully support the motion to put additional funding into the matter. And again, we have 2 more meetings if there's any changes. So thank you, Commissioner O'Brien.
And then just, my intention is not to bring in the convenience centers at all in this
Right.
whole thing. I mean, that's something for later. This is just dealing with, do we feel we need to go to countywide mandatory pickup? And that's,
Okay, at this time, I'll ask you if you want to amend your motion to the 850 range for now, knowing that we can lower it at the public hearings.
yes, I'll go ahead and amend it to add $8.50 to the solid waste district assessment.
And I'll amend my second. At this time, what I'd like to do is open the public hearing, hear from the public on any of this before we actually vote on the item. So any other questions from the commissioners or comments from the commissioners? There being none, I'll open the public hearing portion of the solid waste disposal district. Is there anybody from the public who would like to speak on this issue? Anybody from the public? There being one?
We'll do whatever y'all decide. If you want to insert the best way, you know, we're flexible. We'll make it work whenever we send the trims out.
Very good, thank you.
Anybody else from the public? With that, I'll close the public hearing. Any last comments from the commissioners before the vote?
So, Jason, do we need some clarification on the numbers? I know we had a notice out to the citizens of what the numbers would be, and I believe you and I talked about there may potentially need to be 2 separate numbers. I'm just trying to figure out what we need to clarify as part of the motion.
Yes, correct. So we will have 2 different rates. Those folks in the cities and also outside of the urban service area would continue with the same rate because the cities have their own collections. So if you think the city of Vero, for instance, they already have mandatory collections. The city of Vero trucks go around and do it. Same thing with Sebastian, which is not mandatory, but Waste Management has their own thing. So we shouldn't bill those folks for that. So we would just be doing this in the unincorporated area. But as it was contemplated mandatory, it was inside the urban service area only. So if somebody's on a 10-acre property out on 82nd Avenue or something, that they're not within that. So we'll have 2 different rates. So if the board wants to do this, we'll have the current rate for those who are in a city or are outside the urban service area would be the rates as proposed today. But the folks in the unincorporated area within the urban service area, boy, that's a mouthful, the rate would be $51 higher. That's the 850 times 6 months would be $51 higher than the proposed rate per ERU. So the rate per residential ERU would be $120.90 for those in cities and outside the urban service area, but then it would be $171.90 for those in the unincorporated area within the urban service area, which would be the mandatory garbage collection area. So hopefully that was clear enough.
Mr. Reingold, would you like the maker of the motion to state or incorporate those numbers in his motion?
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
If I could, keeping in mind that you could always go down but not go up.
No, that's why we raised it to the 51.
Right, but let's, just in case you go countywide, mandatory outside the urban service boundary, we can make the decision, but staff was squirming back here whenever y'all started some of that for right now.
Okay.
Not that we can't do it, but just in case.
So how about unincorporated areas, the higher rate, in the cities is the lower rate? Will that work for you?
The
Or
cities will stay the same, because they just basically anybody that's on county
Contract.
collection just for the workshop, and the budget hearings, let's leave it that way. We could always come down from that in September. That's kind of the feel that I got from staff.
Okay, so it's the urban service boundary is the issue, or are you wanting it across the board?
Across the board.
Okay, okay,
Please.
Till we can sort it out.
okay. So that would,
That's much cleaner since we're making decisions quickly here. Or I'm having to make decisions quickly, I guess. Y'all have a little more time than I do.
We're used to it.
I know. Thanks.
right,
So-
yeah, and,
so
and
then-
it, and it was short notice for Wesley, so I appreciate, and I know they've got to get the trim notices out shortly. So
So he's suggesting that we change the residential ERU to $171.90 for everybody for now.
In the unincorporated area.
Yeah, basically, treat all county residents the same.
Okay.
And then that way, in the event that you come retreat back from that, at least that way, what it is helping me to provide a uniform trim notice without having to.
Reprint and.
I mean, we can do it. And so if you decide to go that route, that's perfectly fine. But in the event you decide not to do it, you can't go back to that number.
So that's the same thing as our MSTU. Is all the unincorporated.
I think he's talking about countywide, just do the one higher rate, which is going to be higher than we
For the
would.
cities and everything.
Yeah, but just for the ease of.
Is that what you're saying?
them.
No, you're talking about, unless I'm missing something, you're talking about considering a mandatory garbage collection.
Correct.
Okay? If
For the
you're doing that, you're only
unincorporated
going to be able to do that on residents in unincorporated in River County.
Correct.
Treat them all the same.
Oh, yeah, okay.
You were talking about outside the urban service boundary, inside
Okay.
the urban service boundary.
Oh,
and-
no,
And
okay.
we can differentiate that, but that's where you were going, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yes, you're correct.
Okay, all right.
I understood you, Wesley. It's just for more time on the dais, so.
Well, it's good to be back.
Okay, so then, the motion would be that, for 120.90 for those within the cities and 171.90 for anyone in the unincorporated county.
Amend the second to reflect the same. Any other comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you, and thank you, Commissioner O'Brien.
Thank
So,
you.
Jason, do you need to make any last statement?
I will say, yeah, we'll work with the tax collector because we'll have to get that tightened up on that end. And from a planning standpoint, the logistics, if the board does decide to move forward in this direction, I think 6 months is good for planning purposes, but we haven't had any discussions with Waste Management on how long it'd take to get carts or something implemented. So even if we were able to, even if we do this, we're planning for an April 1 date, but it may be a later date even if we move forward, just because of the logistics. I don't know how long it would take for Waste Management to get all the carts and everything to get all done and mobilized. So, and obviously this is something to begin the discussion so that we can make a final decision. So that's all. Thank you.
And at this point, I'll formally close the public hearing for the Solid Waste Disposal District. I will ask, earlier today, we moved the sheriff's portion of the budget up, and it's basically completed, but it was anticipated that it would be about this time. So I'll ask if there's anybody from the public who would like to comment on the sheriff's portion of the budget. Anyone from the public wish to comment on the sheriff's portion of the budget? Name and address for the record, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Laura Zork. My address is 7557 15th Street, Vero Beach. I'm here as the chairman of the Indian River County School Board, and I want to say thank you to the sheriff for including the shared costs that we have for the deputies that will be at majority of our school. All our schools have deputies, but the sheriff's office is cost sharing up to 21 deputies, and then also cost sharing 2 sergeants. We have a sergeant from North County, Sergeant Bailey, and then we have a sergeant from South County, Sergeant Ross Partise. What they do is they help coordinate our security training and just anything that happens within our school district. They can work with the deputies firsthand, and as a board member, I want to say thank you to the commission for recognizing not only as safety and security and important, just to the school district, as the board, but as a county commission, that you find it's important to make sure that we have security and safety within our schools. So I just want to say thank you. I know that it is quite a chunk out of our budget to cover this. And as we look out throughout the state of Florida, not all counties are doing what you're doing. So with that, we have a great community here, and all of us working together, we recognize that security is a top priority. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else want to comment on the sheriff's portion of the budget?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to let the deputies know that are here that earlier today, the sheriff fought hard for his budget and threw things around and yelled and screamed and extracted every penny he could out of us. So
Where are you?
Sheriff was fighting hard today.
Where was he?
Whoa.
Well, that was the city meeting.
I think, Mr. Brown, it's time to move on. I believe at this point, we're up to aggregate millage.
Sorry, get my mic on. The proposed aggregate millage rate is 6.1192, which is an increase from the current rate of 5.9950, but most importantly is an increase of 0.4260 from the rollback rate, or goodness gracious, or 7.5% up front over the rollback rate. So that if the board will we're required to state the aggregate millage rate and how it compares to the rollback rate. So that is the aggregate rate. And then next, I think we have consideration for a motion for the proposed millage rates, if there are any adjustments to the budget, or proposed millage rates if you want to make any changes, or if you want to approve as proposed.
Well, there have been no proposed changes during the budget hearings today that would impact the millage rate. The only change we did make was the one just recently to the solid waste disposal district, but that doesn't impact the millage rate. So at this time, I believe it would be proper to have a motion to adopt the proposed millage rates.
So moved.
Second?
Motion from Commissioner Flesher, seconded by Commissioner O'Brien to adopt the proposed millage rates. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 5-0. At this time, I'd like to announce that on Wednesday, September 11th, 2019, at 5:01 p.m. in these chambers, there'll be a public hearing on the tentative budget and proposed millage rates. Then on Wednesday, September 18th, 2019, in these chambers at 5:01 p.m., there'll be a final budget hearing and adoption of millage rates. I'll ask if there is any final words for the public. There being none, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.